When it comes to survival movies, the best ones strip characters down to a primal state and force them to survive in hostile environments. No one knows who will survive or whether or not the cold, hunger, or fear will overtake them. If you're in the mood for movies where people are pushed to their limits, today I've got 7 of the best survival movies that you can find on Netflix. First up, we have a survival movie that's built on a simple but terrifying idea. What would you do if you were trapped on top of a 2,000-foot radio tower?
Trust me. What was that? Oh my God!
This movie is called Fall, and it follows 2 friends who get stuck on top of a radio tower with no ladder and no safe way down. Fall is a lot more nerve-wracking than your average survival movie because it also plays on the viewer's fear of heights. You always feel like they could fall off at any moment, and the longer they go without water and shelter, the more desperate they are to get down. The director actually had the actors on a 100-foot tower on top of a mountain, so what you're seeing is not green screen but legit fear and real stunts. Fall is a pure survival thriller and one of the most tense movies you will find in the genre. At number 6, we have a fast-paced survival action movie.
Go back to the calls.
Dad, please!
This is called Beast, and it follows a father and his 2 daughters who find themselves hunted by a massive rogue lion. Beast traps the family in their SUV with no cell signal, no help, and miles of open South African savanna. The car, which is basically supposed to be their sanctuary, quickly starts to feel like more of a prison. There's constantly this danger and adrenaline as you wonder how long they can last without getting eaten. It's a very fast-paced movie with lots of action scenes and even elements of horror. If you want a pretty simple but effective man versus nature type movie, Beast is a solid choice. After that, we have a historical survival movie that's based on the true story of a Danish exploration team in Greenland who end up stranded in one of the harshest environments on Earth. It's called Against the Ice and is essentially about 2 guys with dwindling supplies in the freezing cold. These guys are stranded for quite a long time, and the elements in isolation really starts to have an effect on their physical and mental well-being. There's also the question of where to get food in an environment like this, and the explorers have to make some pretty tough moral decisions in order to stay alive. If you enjoy survival movies where the threats from the environment are just as strong as those inside the head, then Against the Ice is a really enjoyable watch. Then at number 4 is a claustrophobic survival movie that mostly takes place in one location, inside a shipping container. This is called Nowhere, and it follows a pregnant woman who flees her country inside a shipping container only to end up stranded alone in the middle of the ocean. The container in this movie, like the car in Beast, is both the woman's only protection and potentially her tomb. There's nowhere to run, no one's coming to help, and almost every new problem makes her chances of survival worse. The container becomes the whole world of this movie, and that tight, confined place is a source of both salvation and hell. Nowhere is a stripped-down, high-stakes survival movie that's all about endurance and desperation. Next up is one of the most epic survival movies you'll find on Netflix, taking place in one of the most hostile environments on Earth. This movie is called Everest, and it's based on the true story of 2 expedition teams attempting to reach the summit of Mount Everest before a brutal storm turns the climb into a fight for survival. This is based on the same 1996 Everest disaster that inspired the Jon Krakauer book Into Thin Air. When things go bad on Everest, they go bad fast. One of the big problems is the climbers are stuck in the death zone, where a lack of oxygen is like a ticking clock. There's also the moral question when so many people are stuck together. If you're capable of moving but the person next to you is not, do you keep going or do you stop to help them? It's a pretty intense and spectacle heavy movie. If you enjoy survival movies that are both epic and overwhelming, Everest is a great pick. At number 2 is a very intense and emotionally heavy movie. It's called Society of the Snow, snow, and it recounts the true story of a rugby team whose plane crashes in the Andes Mountains, leaving the survivors stranded. Society of the Snow really captures the cold, hunger, and psychological toll of being stranded in a hostile environment. One of the most famous aspects of this story is the moral dilemma the group faced as to whether or not to eat the bodies of their friends who had died in order to stay alive. The story was also adapted into the 1993 movie Alive, but Society of the Snow is the more serious and realistic version of the story. It's a really powerful movie and one of the hardest to shake survival stories ever told. Then at number 1, we have one of the most brutal and unforgiving survival movies ever made. This is The Revenant, which is about a badly wounded frontiersman who is left for dead after a brutal attack and has to fight his way through the wilderness to survive. The Revenant is one of the most grueling and gritty survival movies you'll ever see. For a large chunk of the movie, the frontiersman Hugh Glass cannot walk, cannot talk, and cannot defend himself. The wilderness is a constant antagonist working against him. He basically has to get down to his raw instincts to survive, eating raw bison liver and cauterizing his wounds by blowing up gunpowder. It's a pretty stunning movie that's tough, intense, and visually impressive. If you're in the mood for a big, cinematic, survival-driven movie, The Revenant is one of the best ever made. Then I got one more quick bonus movie for those of you who happen to be in Australia. It's called Arctic, and it's another stripped-down survival story about a man alone in the frozen wilderness. Pretty solid movie. I believe this is on Prime in most other regions. That is everything for today, though. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon.